The baseball world was rocked late month by news coming out of Hiroshima, involving one of the Carp's promising utility infielders.
Ryutaro Hazuki, just 25 years old, was taken into custody by the Hiroshima Prefectural Police on suspicion of violating the Pharmaceuticals and Medical Devices Act.
The reports quickly clarified that this was not a violation of the traditional Narcotics Control Act, which covers substances like cocaine or methamphetamine, but rather a breach relating to the use of a designated controlled drug, specifically etomidate. The details, as reported by multiple media outlets, allege that Hazuki used a small quantity of etomidate domestically around December 16, 2025. This timeline is crucial. The incident allegedly occurred well after the 2025 season concluded, but before spring training had begun.
However, the initial shockwave through the league and among the fan base was monumental. Hazuki, for his part, has reportedly denied the allegations, stating he has no recollection of using the substance.
This denial, while standard procedure in many legal situations, immediately complicates the internal review process for the Hiroshima Carp organization and for Nippon professional baseball as a whole.
Hazuki represents a classic case of wasted potential, regardless of the eventual legal outcome.
At Fangit 5, he was entering his prime years, known primarily for his defensive versatility and speed, the kind of player every roster needs for depth and flexibility. He was a legitimate NPB athlete, and his immediate future, and possibly his entire career, is now hanging by a thread.
The comment sections and online forums immediately exploded, with discussions ranging from harsh judgment demanding immediate dismissal to sympathetic voices lamenting the sheer waste of talent.
Many observers pointed out the stark difference between simply being questioned and facing a full arrest.
The fact that police obtained an arrest warrant strongly suggests they believe they have substantial evidence to proceed, making Hazuki's continued denial increasingly precarious.
If the evidence is indeed conclusive, his refusal to admit guilt will likely only compound the severity of the team's eventual disciplinary action. Let's delve into the substance itself. Etomidate is a powerful sedative, often used intravenously in medical settings for general anesthesia. It is absolutely not a drug available over the counter or casually accessible.
While it may not carry the immediate stigma associated with hard narcotics like shabu in Japan, its misuse still falls under the stringent regulations of the PMDA Act, classifying it as a designated illegal substance when used outside of licensed medical contexts.
Shadar, the online chatter referencing the substance colloquially as zombie tobacco, highlights the severe and disorienting effects etomidate can have, effects that obviously render an elite professional athlete incapable of performing his duties or upholding the high standards expected by the public and the league.
This is not a gray area situation. It is a fundamental breach of conduct.
The standard procedure for NPB organizations facing an active player drug arrest leaves very little room for maneuver.
The league operates under a strict code of ethics, heavily emphasizing the responsibility of its athletes as role models, particularly for young fans. Shedar, the notion that an active NPB player could be arrested for drug use, even if the specific charge falls under the PMDA Act rather than the Narcotics Act, is utterly devastating to the league's reputation.
Past examples, though rare, indicate that the path forward for the team is clear: separation.
The consensus among league observers is that Hazuki will almost certainly be released by the Carp, likely immediately following the legal proceedings, or at the latest, at the end of the current off-season.
It is highly unusual for an active player to face this kind of charge.
While baseball has seen gambling scandals and occasional disciplinary issues, active arrests for controlled substances are the pinnacle of negative publicity.
The Japanese press reported that Hazuki's home was subjected to a search, and if evidence was recovered there, supporting the use allegation from December, the case against him becomes virtually undeniable.
The fan reaction reflects this severity. They won't keep someone who denies the charge when the police have proof, and he needs to be cut for the sake of the youth influence.
So, what happens next for Ryutaro Hazuki? The first step will be dealing with the legal system.
Following the immediate legal and PR fallout, the inescapable reality is that his professional career in NPB is effectively over. While some commentators muse about the possibility of him heading to the independent leagues or even retiring, the deep cultural shame and the black mark of a drug arrest in Japanese professional sports are almost impossible to overcome.
Even if he were merely charged with usage and not possession, the negative public perception ensures that no NPB team would risk signing him.
This is a tragic end to what could have been a solid, if unspectacular, career.
He was still young enough to develop, still had the speed and fielding prowess to contribute, but the decision made back in December 2025, a decision he now denies, has created a consequence that will reverberate for years to come.
The question of whether he can ever return to professional baseball is highly academic. In the NPB context, the answer, unfortunately for Ryutaro Hazuki, is a resounding and emphatic no. The book on his professional career appears to be definitively closed.